What's up, good people? Welcome to the 2-0 After Hours podcast. Chargers go 2-0. First time they've done that since 2012. They beat the Panthers 26-3. We had Bryce Young pass for 84 yards today. Tommy Tremble was their leading receiver with 3 catches, 23 yards. Panthers had 90 yards on the ground. Defense had 2 turnover on downs, an interception. Offense went for 347 total yards and 219 on the ground on a nice, calm, and easy Sunday morning for me, afternoon for you, Craig. But it was easy breezy today for the Chargers. And Harbaugh talked about putting an identity to this Chargers team. And for 2 games, we saw that.
Yeah, so I was mentioning to you before we hopped on, I've been fighting through a bug since midweek, but nothing makes me feel better than starting off 2-0 in the Harbaugh era. So, man, if you don't like this style of football, you're going to hate the rest of the season. I'm sorry. Well, this entire Harbaugh tenure, should I say, because this is what you're going to see here. They're going to dominate in the run game, or at least try their best to. And the passing game is going to come into play when it needs to. And Herbert will take a front seat at times, but if they can just, crush teams just by handing the ball off however many times, what was it today, 44 attempts, if they're going to run the ball 40 plus times and they're going to have that high of a clip per rush, then just expect to see that throughout the season. But wins are wins, and this is what you're going to have to look forward to.
Yeah. So we saw J.K. Dobbins, who feels like he is on his kind of revenge tour, his Dobbins revenge tour. Real effective all day today. We saw that big scamper for 43 yards and then the flip it in the end zone. But he was the most effective running back today. And the Chargers blockers did a really phenomenal job up front and got downfield in a hurry today. He felt like on third down, a walking first down. J.K. Dobbins just felt like he was effective across the board. And when they handed it to him on 3rd and 1, 2, or 3, it just felt like Dobbins was going to get there no matter what.
It's because he's a very, very natural running back. Of all of the runners that they have, he's probably the most natural. He overall just knows how to press the hole and when to be patient to allow things to develop. And he's also fantastic in BPU, blitz pickup. So he's the all-around back. Can't wait to see them get him more involved in the passing game. You saw him slip out into the flat maybe like once today. The reception went for like maybe negative yards or no yards at all. Yeah. So, but he can pretty much do it all. And all that talk about him losing explosiveness, like I didn't see that week 1. He just looked like a guy who didn't have really that stamina yet. And he's building his way through it, but he wanted to prove a point to everybody with that front flip into the end zone. My knee and everything just fine. I'm still plenty explosive.
But how did your knees feel watching that? Nothing, right?
Let's not discuss. My 41-year-old knees a little bit different, even without the surgery.
Yeah, right. And so, there wasn't a lot of negatives, and I don't even know that this is a negative, but it just doesn't feel like Gus Edwards is kind of been up to snuff for the first 2 games. Didn't really look good in the first game. This second game, he, from time to time, he was able to. There was a play in the second quarter where he looked like he was shot out of the cannon and then hit that hole really quickly. But on 3rd down, he got stopped on a 3rd and 1. The Chargers ended up punting from the 50-yard line, which I felt like was a little weird. And then gets stopped on a 3rd and 2 for no gain. They have to end up kicking a field goal kind of later in that game in the second half. But Dobbins, well, I said, looked like a walking first down on 3rd down. Gus couldn't quite get there on a couple 3rd downs today, at least 2 in my book. And, I think he averaged like a little over 3 yards per carry. And I know, JK had that big run that he popped off, but still was really effective today. Gus Edwards, not as good as advertised so far.
Gus is still rounding himself into form. This is kind of like, I'm not making excuses for him, somewhat like preseason form, because he did not practice very much during the preseason and into camp dealing with whatever injury he had. So he's not really up to snuff at this point. I expect him to build as the season goes on. And that's even more encouraging because if you have like a two-headed monster like that, then you're really going to be able to do some damage with Gus being the back that just really wears on teams, and JK being the one who can break for those really long, explosive runs like we saw him do today and last week.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. He didn't really get a lot of run this training camp or in preseason, so he's still kind of getting his legs under him. But we saw a couple flashes today. Why don't while we're still sticking with offense, why don't let's talk about QJ and how he did today.
I think this goes without saying. It was absolutely his best performance as a pro to this point. And we on this podcast have always been very straightforward about our feelings where QJ is concerned. If he's earned the criticism, we're going to give it to him. If he's going to get the praise, it's going to be because he earned that as well. And today, I have no negative criticism about him whatsoever. It was a phenomenal day from him. No drops. He looked very, very good. That touchdown pass that he caught from Herbert, besides the fact that it was semi-contested, let's talk about the fact that he beat J.C. Horn off the line to the outside. Herbert threw a bad inside ball. He had already won on the outside, so he was perfectly positioned to win if Herbert got that over his shoulder. That makes me wonder a little bit because he's not the best at over-the-shoulder throws. I'm not going to say Herbert did this on purpose, but he absolutely did adjust and make that catch in a more difficult position on the inside for that score. And then, man, just the second touchdown, he was wide open. I don't know if that was busted coverage or not. I'd have to go back and check it out, but just he looked confident. And you see what he's able to do with the ball in his hands after the catch. The very first play was a quick bubble screen to him, and they definitely had intentions on getting him going in this game. I expect them to do more of it moving forward because that's where he's best utilized, and they'll probably use him to stretch the ball down the field after they get him going on a couple short routes to build up his confidence. It's just like a basketball player. You have to see the ball go into the hoop a few times before you start really warming up. But, man, overall, if QJ turns into this level of player and he has this consistency throughout the year, on top of what like a guy like Ladd McConkey offers, and as long as the other receivers can just add a little bit here and there, passing game might be pretty decent. They just have some things to work through, but just keeping the focus on QJ, great game. Great game. Best as a pro so far, no doubt.
And I know it's early, but could this possibly be right? From Pastelito, no other wide receiver in the league has more touchdowns than QJ right now. I'm sure he's tied because I think Mike Evans has 2 and Stephon Diggs had 2. But anyway,
if this is true, this is a cute fact through 2 weeks, and I get what you're doing here, and I appreciate you for making the effort.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I like it. But yeah, there was a lot of good play, especially in the first half from QJ. But once they threw it to QJ to start the game on the little bubble screen where I think he had like 3 yards, but they made an effort early on to get him the ball, maybe to get his confidence up, but just to get a quick completion out the gate, get QJ moving. And when they got him moving last game, he looked pretty good. So to get him up on that bubble screen was great, but that straight go route was unreal. I mean, it just felt like and I said this on Twitter and stuff, but it felt like a vintage QJ from TCU type play. Just a straight go route. Beats J.C. Horn, who's a really, really good corner and needs to be bailed out of Carolina, man. Any good player that's playing for the Panthers right now, save them. And J.C. Horn, come to the Chargers. Would you? I love J.C. Horn. But if you're good and you play for Carolina, go get traded, man. This is not fun for you or anybody, not the fans or anybody, even opposing fans. I mean, I didn't want to watch the Panthers. I feel bad for them. But anyway, to be able to go straight by J.C. Horn and then have the body control and the adjustment to go back and get that ball on the inside, like Craig was talking about, it wasn't a great ball from Herbert. But in order to beat J.C. Horn inside, go back and catch that ball with J.C. Horn on him, I mean, that felt like the college days. That's what got him drafted so high. And then the second touchdown felt like a really, really good play design from Roman, getting the offense moving to the left, having QJ roam to the right. He just kind of found the soft spot in the zone. There was no Panther in the area, but a great job of making the catch, getting his second touchdown. They were in the red zone. To get that score was huge. And to have a 2-touchdown day, was really nice for his confidence and hopefully for this offense going forward, because Ladd McConkey looks great. And I got to say, his catch to dive forward on every play is not only smart for a smaller player, but also savvy enough to gain an extra, yard or two without taking that big hit. I love the way he's shaped out so far in 2 games. Didn't have a big touchdown catch like he did in week 1, but still really, really important. Looks like he's going to be the kind of go-to target on third downs when they have to start really playing tighter games, which obviously wasn't today. But loved what they did with QJ today, getting him involved early and then getting the 2 touchdowns was awesome for him and the offense.
Oh yeah, for sure. Ladd's a chain mover, so I fully expect him to be one of those main third down targets until the offense really starts to find his groove in the passing game, and then you'll probably start seeing him become more of that target monster that we initially thought he would be. For the time being, they're just working through some kinks. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. But as far as the overall wide receiving core goes, there's no quote unquote guy. But I think we knew that going into the year. Josh Palmer had a couple receptions.
Oh, man. Oh, you froze for a sec, Greg. You still there? Yeah, there you are.
There.
Yeah, you're back now.
Oh, sorry. I don't know the last thing you heard, but seemed like Josh Palmer was dealing with something. He is the knee. I wonder if it's that same knee that he hurt in training camp, where we went there that day and we saw him like spike the ball and kind of yell out. I don't know if that's still lingering around or not, but we didn't know if Palmer was going to be in the game right before. It looked like he may not be, but they don't have just a guy. They're going to multiple guys, and that's just kind of how it's going to be throughout the season. But overall, Ladd's going to be an integral part of the offense. Pretty sure we all knew that. And again, just watch for him later on throughout the season for more targets.
I think the Palmer injury was upper half. It looked like he was kind of holding his arm a little bit, but so I don't know.
Oh, no. I meant like pregame. Pregame, there were reports coming out that he made like there was potential that he wouldn't play in the game. And I think it was knee related.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So add that on top of it. But let's talk about the offense. You kind of started to allude to it. Kind of hit or miss a little bit here for 2 weeks. Got the win, but still working out the kinks.
Okay, so here's the thing that's kind of rubbing me the wrong way. There were at least 2 occasions where Herbert tried to signal for motion and the person who he was signaling to did move. The first time it was Ladd. The second time it was Scott Matlock, who I'm going to shoot a little bit of bail to here because he's still learning the position. But still, there seems to be some communication lapses. But even on I guess it was an extended play. I'm not going to call it a broken play. It was more of an extended play where Herbert was expecting Ladd to alter his route, and Ladd didn't. Look like he either slowed down or didn't like extend as far out as Herbert thought he would, and that caused him to miss him on what could have been a big play if Ladd just continued with the route. So they're working through some stuff, communication, particularly in the passing game, but especially when they're going to be running a lot of these motions, because it's the way to identify whether or not the defense is in man or zone. So that's why you see the Chargers do a ton of it. When wide receivers go in motion and the DB follows, typically that means it's going to be man-to-man. If they don't, it's going to indicate zone. So that's why they do it so often. And sometimes they do a bunch of these orbit motions to just kind of throw in some eye candy towards the defense as misdirection. But overall, again, it's just an offense that's still working to find its groove in the passing game, especially when you consider the fact that they're run-oriented. So it's probably not going to look great for a little while.
Yeah, and they haven't really had to. With how effective the run game has been, they haven't been forced to have to really kind of work on that yet. But yeah, I mean, it looks like it's a work in progress. Justin Herbert kind of wasn't all that sharp, and he didn't really need to be, but we saw a pretty bad mental mistake where he tried to throw across his body on the second drive and gets picked by JC Horn. And then when he's trying to do too much, where he's in a crowd and tries to make a throw anyway. And I appreciate the effort, but at that point in the game, I don't know, you need to make it. Instead of going down, gets hit from behind, kind of slow to get up, but returns. There were a couple injuries today late in that game. Herbert being one of them, Christian Fulton being the other. Luckily, both came back in and played, so it doesn't look like it's going to be long-term injuries. But man, at one point you thought you might see some of the backups, but you did towards the end of that game. But just some they're kind of rough around the edges right now. I mean, Herbert dealing with that foot throughout all of preseason, probably still trying to find his footing. Pardon the pun there, but offensively they still gotta work it out. And the receiving game isn't great at the moment just because the offense is hasn't really found its groove, but also they haven't really had to be because they have been so effective in the run game. And how about the receivers going out and hitting somebody? I mean, this wide receiver group is not afraid to run block. And that's something that Roman talked about when they were going into the draft. That's what Harbaugh talked about when he came here, that they were finding guys that were scrappy enough that are going to have to hold their own in the run game because they're going to be running a lot. And they did. And we saw a lot of the guys, tight ends and wide receivers, a lot of those pass catchers blocking. And just a shout out to J.K. Dobbins, who feels like an extra offensive lineman when he's in on third and, medium and long, where he's having to pass protect. He looks absolutely amazing back there in protecting Herbert.
This is a team that's going to live primarily in like third manageable and third and short situations. So you're going to have to be really efficient there. And to have a guy that's really good at blitz pickup is super invaluable. Again, being an all-around back is going to come in handy here because of how often they're going to need him to pick up that additional blocker or even at times go out into the route or into a route. So just you can't say enough about him. And then just kind of, again, piggyback off of the injury talk that you mentioned, Ben Herbert making the guys harder to break. You're seeing guys go down and it looks like they could be like major injuries and they're back within like a play or two. So it's telling you all you need to know. I mean, I don't know if they're popping sensu beans on the sideline or what. I don't know. Whatever it is, just keep it going because I love it.
So the chat's letting us know, but the Raiders ended up beating the Ravens late in that game. So I don't know what that means for the Chargers going forward. It's way too early for all that talk, but man, it just feels like the Chargers really beat down the Raiders. And if the Ravens are as good as they have been in years past and the Raiders just beat the Ravens in Baltimore, by the way, I don't know. Chargers might be pretty good, but
I'm so discouraged by that. I was really looking for like a Raiders meltdown this week. I was really looking forward to that. And now they got this false confidence.
Yeah. And they're 0-2 now. The Ravens, sorry. Raiders are now 1-1. Ravens are they lost to the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't help us out in the division at all, Baltimore. Really big letdown. What's really hard about this particular show is that the Chargers did like everything right, that there just isn't like a ton to talk about because they blew them out. But let's, we've talked about offense and you might be frozen, Craig. I'm not sure. But defensively, if you aren't frozen, do you have anything? No, he's frozen. All right. So I can do this on my own. Craig, if you need to jump out.
My internet is going nuts right now.
Oh, there you are. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Defensively, let's talk about it. I mentioned it early on. I mean, Bryce Young, 84 yards passing. They had 90 yards on the ground. The Panthers did. They ended up getting the interception by Elijah Molden, which I'm sure we'll end up talking about. And then the 2 turnovers on down late in that game, getting 3 turnovers, getting the ball back, and really, no real issues for me defensively.
No, man, they didn't allow a first down until under the 5-minute mark of the second quarter and didn't yield a third down conversion until the fourth quarter. I don't know how much more you could ask for them. They carried the offense a lot most of the way through the first half. So a repeat of the Raiders game. And they kind of bailed Herbert out after sacking Bryce Young and knocking the Panthers out of field goal range after he threw that really bad interception. So just overall, another outstanding game. A bunch of guys really showed themselves today. Denzel freaking Perryman is playing some of the best football I've seen him play. And I know it's just through 2 games, but this looks like a rejuvenated player. And just the linebacking core in general, Deion Henley gets props to. His open field tackling is very good. And Christian Fulton with some really good PBUs and coverage. And we'll talk about the Elijah Molden thing a little bit more. I know we kind of want to spread it out a little bit and give all these guys their credit. I don't want to like bunch it all together. So just overall, the defense did pretty good. I don't feel like the interior defensive line played as well this week as they did last week. So that's my only red flag. But other than that, overall, as a whole, the defense, phenomenal job today. I mean, he only gave up 3 points. How can you be mad at that?
You can't. You're definitely not mad at it, but
nitpicking.
Yeah. If we're nitpicking on a 26-3 blowout that was over, which felt like, well, after the first possession, it felt like it was over before it began, but also that, Chargers walked down and it was pretty much over from there. But yeah, I do want to give credit to Deion Henley, who was absolutely awesome today. Perryman looks great, but Henley was all over the place. Really showed off his sure tackling at the second level near the line of scrimmage. Really good in coverage. He led the team in tackles today. Had a tackle for a loss. Almost had an interception on that last drive. Almost did. And then he also got a tackle on special teams. Junior Colson goes down, so Henley gets some extended snaps with Perryman, and then Troy Dye kind of got sprinkled in toward the end of that game. But Henley was a monster today. He was really good, and his tackling has just been great through 2 games. And the fact that Staley couldn't find snaps for him last year is so supremely disappointing, because you would have had a lot more experience heading into year 2, but we got to let that go, be in the rearview mirror. But yeah, a really, really good game from the linebackers today. Henley was great today. Perryman, and that sack on third down to knock the Panthers out of field goal range was awesome. Also, Bryce Young's got to get rid of that ball. I don't know what he's doing hanging in there and taking that hit, but great play from Perryman and Henley today. Linebackers were good.
I'm never letting the Brandon Staley thing go. You're going to have to be the mature one. I'm just not at that point yet, because I can't understand. I can't forgive a guy who saw this level of talent and found a way to not allow it to see the field. Yeah, Henley is the athlete at the second level that we need. I hope everything's okay with Colson. The dude just kind of seems to be dealing with injuries religiously. It's gone back to college, but I'm thinking he'll be okay. It sounds like a soft tissue thing. Mm-hmm. But again, this defense is going to be predicated on their ability to create pressure, turnovers, and the second level play is going to be a huge deal. And having linebackers that are short tacklers are able to rally to the ball and get out to the edges, especially, because that's where you really get trashed, whether it's in the run or passing game. Once you get past the defensive line, if you're running, your linebackers can't run, and they have really bad pursuit angles, things of that nature. That's how those really big busted plays happen, because typically your corners and maybe sometimes your safeties aren't the best tacklers. And if they get past your linebackers, then it could go for a while. But when you have guys that can really run and get ball carriers and receivers down at the second level, it means everything, especially to a defense like this.
Yeah. You mentioned Christian Fulton. I mean, 2 games, 2 really strong performances. Really nice diving PBU on third down to force a punt early in that game. Forced an incompletion on a third down. He was the one who came in and deflected that ball that Henley almost intercepted, right? Was that Fulton?
No. You're talking about.
Oh, that was Dean Leonard.
No, that was Leonard.
Yeah. But still, Fulton was really good today. I was really discouraged when he went down, kind of holding himself, but he went back in, so he looks okay. But Fulton's looked great as kind of the CB1. Zont had a couple plays today, just breaking on some balls. It was pretty clear that they weren't afraid that they were going to get beat deep, and they were just kind of playing a little soft cushion today and just breaking on everything in front of them. Jesse Minter has really put together 2 extremely good defensive game plans. And again, the Chargers were a blown tackle away last year to really blowing out the Raiders. But Minter, from game 1 to game 2, really putting it together. And this could be a seriously good defense if everything just keeps clicking like it is right now.
Yeah, overall, it's very good, but not just good in the areas where you expect them to. Like, you think or they should be good on the edges just based on the names and personnel. It's everything below just the standout names or the household names that matters. You look at guys that are cast-offs from other teams or had these stints where they couldn't stay healthy or they weren't in the right scheme, and he incorporates them into this defense in year 1, and through 2 games, this looks like, I was saying, a top 10 defense in the NFL. This could be like somewhere in between, maybe around middle of that, 5 to 7. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself because they have to play some stiffer competition moving forward. But just the way these guys communicate, the fact that they're keeping the top on the defense, like, we haven't seen any team go for a big play yet. I expected maybe something to happen against the Raiders, just looking at the fact that they have a Devontae Adams and some of that young talent that they have at tight end. But outside of that, I mean, the Panthers, I didn't really think they were going to be able to move the ball vertically. They just don't have the passing game for that. Bryce Young is super young in his career and not very confident at this point. So we'll see how it works going forward. But all these games do are help you fine tune your craft. So I just expect the defense to get better. And you look at a guy like Dean Leonard, like before, if one of your starting corners went out and you had to sub a guy in for any time, you were always just kind of worried that a defense would attack that dude. When Dean Leonard came in, you were just kind of like, oh, okay, cool, just keep the party going. Because you've seen the improvement in Dean Leonard from last year just to this year, which again makes me wonder, what the hell was Brandon Staley doing? What was up with that entire coaching staff? Development apparently was not their forte. Not a problem with this Chargers team.
No, no, it is not. And speaking of kind of churning, by the way, Dean Leonard, excellent on special teams. But when he came into the game, I was kind of excited to see a little bit more of Dean Leonard because his tackling on special teams is so good that it feels like that's one of those DBs you might want to see on the field a little bit more just because he is so good. You don't have to worry about him as much as you had in the past. I'm really excited about his growth, but let's talk about Elijah Molden. We talked about a little bit about him. He's the man who got the interception. Sneaky good pickup so far, it looks like, maybe in one game at least.
Elijah Molden was one of my favorite pickups this offseason, just because you look at a defense that has, and you know what, a lot of his game reminds me of Alohi Gilman's, except he might be a little bit more natural of a playmaker. Alohi's one of those dudes who, and instincts go a long way. It's what, when people say that a guy's always around the ball, it's because they're very instinctual. Like Alohi finds ways to create turnovers by, like, you know, doing the peanut punch thing he does and just kind of being around. Well, the thing where it differs a little bit here is that, you know, we have now a player that's able to put himself in position to make plays like he did today. So Molden, that pick that he got in the second half, what stands out to me is the way that he drove on that ball from his spot in the middle third. Like, that's exactly the type of ability he put on display back in his days as a Washington Husky. I mean, even then he was playing more of a corner safety hybrid role, but he was always around the ball. That's where playmaking comes in. And that's why you get that, you know, that moniker, that designation as a playmaker. And again, this is what, how many weeks has he been with the team now? Maybe like a month. And he's already stepped in a game where he wasn't technically supposed to start because, I mean, Alohi wasn't there. I mean, I guess I wasn't really paying attention. He did start, right?
Molden? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So he came in as his first game as a starter in a new scheme, and there was no drop off from Alohi being out to him being in. And then for him to make the type of play that he made there shows you all you need to know about the level of playmaker that he is. And I said that he's really good in between the numbers because it's true. He's not the most athletic guy, but the instincts mixed with, like, the fact that he's quicker than fast comes in handy for someone who plays between the numbers, because it's less space that you have to occupy, less room to have to maneuver. But then you also see him be a very, very solid tackler there. He made a really good, hard legal shot on a receiver in the fourth quarter that put a stop. Yeah, that put a stop to a reception. So, I mean, Joe Hortiz, man, he's cooking. Is it Chef Hortiz? Is that the nickname they gave him?
Makes sense. So far.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. I think you and I both said it when they signed him, because they traded for him, didn't sign for him, traded for him during the cut time, right before that, you know, they needed an extra DB. The Chargers traded for him for a late round pick. And we were both saying on Twitter, at least I saw, I don't know what Jamie said, I didn't see him say anything about it, but this felt like a very under the radar, nice, versatile piece that you could move around. And even though, you know, his 40 time isn't like blazing fast, when he's on the field and he's working downhill, he is pretty quick, especially as a blitzer near the line of scrimmage. You saw how he broke on that ball and was able to get there, beat the man to the ball. Really good hit in the middle of the field, and racked up a ton of tackles today near the line of scrimmage, right before the sticks. It felt like Molden was a nice little kind of introductory to this kind of rotational piece in a mentor defense. If this all kind of works out, if, you know, injuries occur like we saw with Gilman, it just feels like he's one of those guys that you can move around, even if you want to put him at the second level as kind of a dime piece or a nickel piece. Molden feels like one of those rotational guys where, you know, we love that Adrian Phillips and that, you know, that big dime, big nickel look. This feels like Molden could be one of those guys if they wanted to implement that really, really good first game from him, and really, really impressive performance as a starter with the team with, only a couple weeks on the roster so far.
Yeah, for sure. Like I mentioned before, same ideas with Washington, hybrid safety slot guy. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him. Well, no, probably not really, because they have Tarheeb still and Jasir Taylor there to man that roll down. But I would love to see him play more in the slot, especially as a blitzer, just like you mentioned, because he's so quick and instinctual, and he's a very, very sound tackler in space. But again, there's nothing wrong with having, multiple playmakers on your defense. It's a good thing. And you consider the fact that there are opportunities for him to get on the field, even with the quote unquote starters that the Chargers already have in place. What it does is it gives you confidence in the fact that, like I mentioned before, if a guy goes down, you can plug someone else in without there not being very much of a drop off. I mean, there are very few like superstars in the NFL where if they're not on a team, there's really like no making up for them being gone. But the Chargers put themselves in a position to where they're not as top heavy, and they have, again, those household names that, if they're not on the field, you'll notice they're missing. But those complementary guys, you can cycle them in and out because you have similar level players connected to them, like right behind them or rotating with them. So this is how you build a roster.
It sure is. Is there anything? I mean, if you guys got questions, send them in, because obviously this was a pretty boring game in terms of having to break it down, just because they were winning forever and never really felt like the Panthers were ever going to get back into that game. But if we're kind of thinking about things to clean up, or at least things to keep an eye on, Dicker felt like he isn't Superman for one game, missing the extra point, which is what it is. But it was kind of the short kick where he didn't make it into the zone, and Carolina gets it to the 40, which became 2 chunk plays into field goal range, and kind of gave up points, their only points of the day, off a pretty bad kick from Dicker. And I don't want to spend too much time on kicker talk, but the one I don't even want to say a low light, because he ended up making his kicks later on. No other misses. Didn't have any other hiccups outside of those 2 little small mistakes. But that short kick where Carolina gets it on the 40 ends up leading to the only points of the day today. And, Dicker helped get them that short field.
I mean, games like this are a coach's dreams, because you get to get huge wins like this in blowout fashion, but you still have things to grow on. So
yes,
specifically with the special teams, there were a couple of things I noticed. Dicker looked a little off today, even outside of the extra point that he missed and not getting that ball into the landing zone. His extra points seemed to be a little off in general, like they were kind of hanging too far to one direction or another. All that matters is he made them, but at the end of the day, be happy about that. But he seemed to just be a tad bit off today. The other concern that I have is this is the second week in a row that Darius Davis seems to not be seeing the field all that well. And I don't know if it's the new way that the kickoffs are set up or not, but last week he missed a lane that would have been literally a house call had he looked directly to his left, I believe, because there's I'm talking about a lane open parted like the Red Sea. He just never saw it, or he saw it too late. Something similar happened today on the opening kickoff. I can't wait to go back and rewatch it, but it looks like something almost exactly like what happened last week happened today, but to the right side. It could have just been me and my view from, you're watching it live on TV, the broadcast view, you see things a bit differently, but I can't wait to go back and watch that. But something about what he's seeing on these kickoff returns doesn't look right. But again, these are all things that you can grow on. So be thankful for that.
I have to tell you, as a guy who coaches sports, not at this level, obviously, but there's nothing better than not having a perfect game, because once you have that win, everybody's still up and they're willing to work on the things that didn't work, which, whether it's Darius Davis or it's Cameron Dicker or it's Eric Tomlinson, who, had a big penalty last week and then had a not fumble today. Everybody's spirits are so high that they're willing to work on that stuff. When you lose and you're down, it's a lot harder to get that message through, because they're already down on a loss and not feeling good about themselves. And then now they have to, correct themselves, it makes it a lot easier when everybody's happy, and we're happy, and I'm sure they're happy too, being 2-0. So, off day for Dicker, I guess a little bit, but still a blowout win. Darius Davis, that penalty on the kicker interference, I mean, he was in his space, but didn't make contact. I don't know. It felt like it could have gone either way on that one too. The fumble, happened, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. But I don't know. I could see it either way, it being a penalty or not being a penalty. But something Darius Davis will definitely need to clean up as well.
So, I mean, unless the rule changed, like, is the halo rule still not in effect? Like, there still needs to be an allotted amount of space for the returner to catch the ball. And whoever the defender was definitely crowding that space.
Yeah.
And then again, apparently, like, Patrick Swayze must have pushed him into Darius Davis because,
how stupid was that?
Yeah,
Hacker yelling, I got blocked into him. There's nobody around you.
Some ghost, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Casper or Patrick Swayze, one of the two. But because there wasn't a charger around for like 5 to 7 yards, but whatever helps you sleep better at night. At the end of the day, yeah, perfect games are few and far in between. And with a team like this, you don't want them to like peak too early because there's so much more growing to do. You can see even with Herbert, like, this was far from a perfect day for Herbert. I mean, we saw him make a mistake that's not too common for him. He's all about taking care of the ball. Like, that interception he threw, completely inexcusable. He completely missed the corner sitting there. And, I mean, J.C. Horn was literally just hanging out, waiting to see if he was really going to do it. I guess I might have caught him off guard. Like, he's not really going to throw this ball back across his body. And he's just there to jump it. But overall, there's still a lot for this team to work on. And like I mentioned before, most of it comes in the passing game, but I feel like there was such an emphasis on building the run that there's a whole lot more to develop in the pass. And I don't think they've gotten close to what they can do from a passing game perspective, especially with some of the guys they have on the coaching staff there to assist in the passing game. So as it season goes along and they have to utilize it more, because teams are going to start crowding the box. It's going to happen. Like, you're not going to have back-to-back weeks of a guy going for over 100, and then this week you rush for over 200 collectively and think that teams aren't going to start putting 8 in the box. That's going to be a thing. Wide receivers are going to have to start winning one-on-one on the outside, beating press, and you're going to have to get kind of creative, and you're going to have to be more efficient as a run game, specifically blocking on your interior, because you still, even when they load the box and they know what's coming, you still have to be able to do it, and you have to be able to do it effectively if the passing game is even going to be an option off of play action. So we keep saying, overall, it's great to be beating the snot out of teams, but still you want to have something to be able to walk into a meeting the next week and point out as a point of emphasis. Yeah,
and I feel like next week against Pittsburgh, in Pittsburgh, they're going to be.
That's the test.
They're going to, that's going to be the real test. Best defense, probably the best defense they're played so far through 3 games, and by far the best rushing defense as well. The other thing I kind of wanted to touch on was there's 2 decisions to punt in this game that felt a little off. There was a time when, in the first half, it was 4th and 1. Gus Edwards gets stopped. It's the first time the Panthers had any kind of run stop at all day. And they're on the 50-yard line, and Harbaugh decides to punt. And at that point, with the emphasis on the run, what you've talked about and the success you've had all day, I don't know that punting there is a great idea. Then they punt from the Panthers 44 later on in that game. It feels like it's just outside of Dicker's range. That feels like you got to go for it there on the 44. Punting there, it ends up getting in the end zone. Dean Leonard can't establish himself back in bounds outside of the end zone, and ends up coming back to the 20. But those 2 instances, and I know like the opponent has a big part of this. Bryce Young can't move the ball, and they basically dared him to do it. It didn't cost them either way. The Panthers punted both times, so it didn't cost them. But if it's the Chiefs or or a closer game or something where you need to break it open, it feels like those 2 instances you normally should go for it. Maybe it changes when they go against a better opponent, or maybe Harbaugh's still got that old school mindset where you just rely on your defense and punt the ball and you don't be ultra aggressive like a Staley. I don't know, but I guess it's just something to keep an eye on when there's kind of that coin flip of do you go for it or not go for it. Those 2 times immediately in my mind, I thought you got to go for that. Obviously Harbaugh didn't, but just something to keep an eye on in terms of what is Harbaugh's mindset now currently about going for it on a, close to the 50-yard line, a little bit in enemy's territory, or even, in the 44 when you're in Panther territory. Do you punt it? Do you go for it? Where is the line there? And today it just felt like Bryce Young stinks and we're just going to punt it anyway. But just something to keep an eye on, at least going forward.
Yeah. Needless to say, I'm going to say it anyway. Harbaugh's the polar opposite of Brandon Staley. So what you're going to see more often than not is he's going to lean on his defense and play the field position game. As far as taking these risks, probably won't happen a ton, especially if they aren't in plus territory. So, I mean, there's kind of like that line of demarcation. So like he's at midfield. I understand why people feel like maybe he should have gone for it there, but I'm not shocked by that at all. It's kind of a Harbaugh thing. He's not going to take a risk in that regard where if he's playing really good defense and they've been proven to stop whoever they're playing against significantly or for the most part so far to that point in the game, he's probably just going to, again, play the field position game and hope to make them have to work the length of the field off of a good punt. So, yeah, I know what we're thinking. It's a physical team that's run first, so you expect for them to just come out there and hand it off to one of those guys, probably J.K. Dobbins more often than not, and get the first down and keep the drive going. But unless it's a gotta have a situation, we're talking about like maybe in the fourth quarter and it's a final drive, or under 7 or 8 minutes and you got to score and then hope your defense can hold on to it. One of those scenarios, I don't expect Jim Harbaugh to go for it in those situations very often.
All right. So if you guys got your questions, send them in now. We're kind of wrapping up here. So it's 13 points through 2 weeks. Just want to update on, the Chargers ended up holding Devontae Adams to 5 catches, 59 yards. Brock Bowers had 58 yards. Today, DA explodes for 9 catches, 110 yards. Brock Bowers kind of has his coming out party a little bit, 9 for 98. On the road against Baltimore, a team that if you would have asked us 2 weeks ago, who's got the better defense, I don't think anybody hesitates to say Baltimore over the Chargers. Now, it kind of looks like, and again, really, really small sample size, but let's have some fun. Chargers holding looks like some kind of talented pass rusher or pass catchers. We know Devontae's great, but Brock Bowers kind of coming alive a little bit here in week 2. They drafted him high for a reason. Keeping them both under, under 60 yards, and then they break out to almost 100 each. It says something about how this defense played and kind of the scheme they drew up for week 1 to kind of limit those guys.
Coaching matters. Can't say how much I stress this. There's a very big difference with Baltimore now as opposed to last year or years prior. There's no more Mike McDaniels, or I'm sorry, McDonald.
McDonald.
I'm sorry, I just got my kids' lunch a little while ago.
I know I'm hungry, so I'm with you.
So yeah, no more Mike McDonald. So that makes a lot of difference. Even though the players are similar and they've gotten additional talent, still you have to have the guy to draw off the plays and put guys in the appropriate position. So you can say what you want. College is a game where if you get like the best players, then you can probably just beat a team off talent. The NFL is a little bit more nuanced, man. You got to have the coaches to help supplement that.
All right, so let's get to some of these questions here. First off, we haven't seen Kamani Vidal yet? ? And that is true. He's been inactive for 2 games. Same with Tarheeb Still, which was very questionable for me today. I know Jasir Taylor played, but he's not a guy you put in late in that game as another DB. But anyway, I digress. Cam Hart was in there,
and he made a tackle.
He sure did. A great one, by the way.
Yeah. Yep.
So, any thoughts on Vidal?
I'm not shocked about that at this point. I mean, you look at the 2-man rotation here. I'll tell you what, there are some kind of questionable rotational guys. Like,
Let's
But
talk. Who's that?
okay, so first and foremost,
Uh-oh.
what the hell did Eric Tomlinson do to get so much PT? Like,
What is going on?
I don't understand this at all. It makes absolutely no sense to me. So he's got like
Yeah.
he knows where all the bones are hidden, apparently, because dude got to the team out of the blue. No one was thinking about him. I don't know whose radar he was on. I mean, clearly like Hortiz and the rest of the squad, because we don't know how that works internally to that degree. But yo, he gets in, finds himself in a position to where now, and this is 2 weeks in a row where he stood out like a sore thumb. It just doesn't really make sense to me. But
In a bad way.
yes,
Yeah.
bad way. And
Bad
this
way.
week he almost cost you in a very real way. Like he got pretty much saved by the bell on one possession where it could have easily been a turnover and been his fault. But I don't really understand that. I think I get the Haskins thing because of what he provides on special teams. So you're going to activate him over a Vidal for the time being. But Kamani Vidal would be nice to see get action. It's just that what you get from Haskins, on I think he plays personal protector on punt, but also in coverage, dude's a maniac. Like he gets downfield, he blows guys up, he can tackle really well. But that's probably why you're not seeing Vidal. When we'll see him? Very good question, because it feels almost like you probably won't unless somebody gets injured. And so you got this young kid with all this talent just kind of hanging out. And with the way Dobbins is playing, they have somewhat similar styles. Unless Gus just wets the bed for the next few weeks, I don't foresee there being an instance where Vidal really gets in for a bit. And like I said before, I expect Gus to kind of warm up now through 2 games. Didn't get very much action during the preseason or in camp. So I don't really know the path to Vidal seeing the field. But that Tomlinson thing, that's what stands out to me the most. Like I can almost make sense of anything else, but that dude's got some dirt on somebody, and I'm gonna prove it somehow.
Yeah, because we had questions about some of the rotations in the preseason, even kind of like questioned where some guys were going in this season. I have no bones to pick with anything except Eric Tomlinson. I just don't know what you bring him in for. He is more of the blocking tight end, even though he got pass reps today, which whatever. But you have Hayden Hurst, you have Will Dissly, and you have Stone Smart, who all feel like they should be getting snaps over Tomlinson, who feels like a special teams guy at best. I don't know what he's doing on the field on offense, unless you're going jumbo, but you got to get Dissly in there and you got to get Hurst in there. And if those two aren't in there, you got to get Smart in there. And then if there's any injuries, then you might see Tomlinson. But what is he doing out there so often for a guy who got added late and is right now, and again, minimal sample size. And to be fair, he had 1 penalty in game 1. He had a fumble that didn't occur today. It just was an incompletion. So I guess you could wipe that clean. But I'm just not sure that he deserves to be on the field outside of those other 3 tight ends. So I agree with you there. And Kamani Vidal, again, like Craig's saying, I mean, Haskins is the RB3 because of the special teams prowess. Kamani Vidal will only see the field unless, again, like Craig said, Gus falls out halfway through the year or there's an injury on the offense. It just doesn't feel like year 1, he's going to get a lot of run in this offense. Moving on to run offense from Omar. Thoughts on the rushing offense? Like it? I mean, 176 yards last week, 219 this week. What do you not like about the rushing offense?
I don't know what there is not to like at this point. It's pretty much the bread and butter as they've plotted it out to be, and it's been effective, especially as the game wears on. Like all you see are early investments that lead to big time ROI as the game progresses. As long as that's the thing.
Investment, just for anybody needing to know the acronym.
There you go, guys. Appreciate you. The more you know. So as long as this is fine and working, as long as it's functional, applicable, then I have no problem with it. Again, my only question comes is when they start going against these teams who are willing to load into the box and have good DBs that can cover on the outside, then it's going to really be tested. For right now, I don't think there's a whole lot you can say against it. Trey Pipkins has a tendency from time to time to get worked 4 to 5 yards into the backfield. And as a guard, that is completely unacceptable. But until it starts negatively affecting plays, then I'm just going to chalk it up to him still adjusting to the position. I always say he's light in the pants to play guard. That is just my personal opinion. But again, this is a nitpicky thing. The run game overall is, I don't know if you could ask for much more at this point, because I don't think I expected it to be. I'll put it this way. I didn't expect one guy to be as dominant a runner as J.K. Dobbins has been through the first 2 weeks, as much as I thought it would be like a collective effort between he and Gus Edwards. And then like you would see two guys go for like 40, 50 yards a piece or something like that. And then, one wouldn't be significantly better than the other as far as production is concerned. But this run offense suits J.K. Dobbins to a T. Mm-hmm. So they knew exactly what they were doing when they were building it, and they knew who they wanted when they went after him, when they went and got a guy like JK, because he was made to run in this game.
Yeah, 135 last week, 131 today. Got touchdowns on both of them. I mean, it's been a thing of beauty. There was some kind of stat today they said where it's like the first time in franchise history. You'll have to let me know. But he's been amazing. There's absolutely no complaints. The interior of the offensive line were an issue in game one. A little less of an issue today, but still had some issues. But I mean, I don't know how you complain about 219 yards on the ground. It's been amazing. And to rely on the run and just wear that clock in that third quarter, like the Chargers did when, all they needed to do was keep that big lead and give it a little cushion, go down, drive, and kick a field goal, I think, at that point. That's the thing of beauty, man. And that's, they said on the broadcast, is the thing we've been saying all off season. That's how you beat these explosive teams like the Chiefs. Is if you can control the clock, control the ball, you're keeping Mahomes on the sideline. That's the thing of beauty, and that's the thing that the Chargers are going to try to do for the rest of the season.
You won't ever get complaints out of me because this is my brand of football.
Yeah.
So, for some people that think this is boring, I feel for you. But like me, I'm over here in complete and utter bliss. This is what I've been asking for years, and watching other teams from afar, admiring how they did it. Teams like the Ravens, and feeling like, man, just wish we could get a little bit of that. Not only did I get what I asked for, I got basically a carbon copy of it. And now watching them kind of struggle feels like poetic justice.
All right, from Papa Starch, biggest concern next week about the Steelers matchup, aside from Watt, obviously. Man, that's an interesting question. Defensively, I think we kind of talked about this week. And by the way, the Dobbins thing, we a lot of chatter talking about how great Dobbins has. He's been amazing, and the revenge tour of him seeing that flash when he was a rookie and early on in his career, being plagued by injuries, and then pop up here now, finally being able to show his worth is awesome. And we love the arc of J.K. Dobbins now. But in terms of Pittsburgh, we talked about it defensively. This is a really, really good defensive team, probably the best defensive team they've played so far through 2 games. Raiders, pretty good defensively too, but Steelers much better. The run game is going to get I feel like their best test to date now against Pittsburgh. The only other thing that concerns me is, I mean, if they've got Justin Fields, Wilson doesn't, neither of them really scare me, but I felt like there were some contain issues today. I felt like Bryce Young could have had a lot more yards on the ground, kind of stayed in the pocket a little bit too much, but I don't know if that they had the lane integrity that they were kind of preaching throughout that week. And if you've got a guy like Justin Fields, who is so dangerous on his feet, that concerns me a little bit. Everybody else outside of that, I know George Pickens was great through week 1. They're playing the Broncos right now. I don't know. Obviously we haven't watched game 2 because we're here with you. But the thing, I think the biggest concern is, how is this offense going to click if the Steelers make it so they can't run? If they shut down the run, where's the pass offense that's kind of struggled through 2 weeks? How are they going to be able to move the football? And can they rely on Justin Herbert if the running game doesn't work? Because they haven't had to in 2 weeks. I'm curious how that's going to all work out. And that feels like my biggest concern is Pittsburgh defensively.
Yep, on the same page, the running game and how the team reacts on obvious passing downs. Because if you find yourself in 3rd and 6+, They're going to send the hounds, and TJ Watt is going to be licking his chops to get after Herbert. Now, thankfully, Joe Alt exists, so hopefully that can help to neutralize that as much as possible. But this is probably going to be a game where not having a true number one could potentially hurt the Chargers. So overall, it's been fun watching them run wild the first 2 weeks. I don't know that I expect that next week. It'll probably be more of a rugged game that comes down to the wire. Kicking the crap out of the Panthers was fun. I don't foresee that being the case with Pittsburgh next week. And defensively, I don't think I'm super worried because the Pittsburgh passing game doesn't scare me at all. They're going to have a more formidable run game. They're all about being physical and getting downhill also, and they have a pretty decent 1-2 punch as well. So curious to see, again, it's going to be twofold. You're going to get your biggest challenge on both sides of the ball, whereas they may not be super explosive in the passing game, but they do have a couple of running backs that can cause issues for you. And if this comes down to one of those possession games, clock management situations, time of possession, then the game can go really, really quickly. And you can find yourself in a situation where you don't have the option towards the end of the game to really just keep churning it out by running it. You're going to have to start dropping Herbert back multiple times, and he's going to have to start slinging it. And who's going to be able to win those one-on-ones on the outside? So should be interesting.
Yep. All right. From HMS Verdon, do we give Hortiz lots of credit? The Hortiz, maybe he's an entity. Maybe that wasn't a spelling error. Do we give the Hortiz lots of credit as well? Fairly obviously, we give Jim and company lots of credit for coaching and development, but having depth also helps. Craig, I mean, we've been pretty vocal about it, but
I mean, you know what the answer is for me. He was my number one pick for GM during offseason. So this just continues to buffer my point. I'm on a roll right now.
Yeah.
No, he gets all of the credit for as far as the personnel is concerned, because Jim said it himself. Now, offseason, Hortiz is Batman to Jim's Robin during the season. Right, they kind of swap out. So for the time being, well, not for the time being, saying this overall, the way that this team is constructed right now is definitely Hortiz getting the majority of the credit. So we don't ever skip out on saying that he's been the man to this point. I mean, I know that some people questioned some of the moves and thought about some of these guys and where they came from, and you associated the name with the team that they played for and didn't necessarily look at the player, because you're seeing dudes play out of their minds that played for these other teams, and you were like, oh, that was the worst year of their career, or they couldn't just ever get it going. You have to look a little bit deeper. Sometimes these dudes were in the wrong role where they were playing. Sometimes they will come out and say it. I mean, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but there were instances.
You can say Hayden Hurst. It's okay.
Yeah. He was one of few.
Yeah.
He was one of few. But overall, yeah, man, you just have to be able to evaluate personnel appropriately. And as a GM, is one of your main jobs to get the players on the team that can play to the scheme the best that it can possibly be played. And again, this is just year one. They don't even have all of the types of players or archetypes of players that they want to have on the squad right now. So yeah, Joe Hortiz, as far as a front office executive, he might be up there for an award come the end of the year.
Yes. It feels like if you're giving Harbaugh this credit, you're giving the same amount to Hortiz, and we give it to him constantly. I am such a fan of his, and I, like Craig, loved the hire, was a top of my list as well. But Hortiz is never happy. He's always making moves within the season, and in the Discord, it's all about that churn. And they talk about churn, baby, churn, and that's churning that roster out. If you're not good enough, we'll find somebody who will be, and if they're not good enough, we'll find somebody else. It's not about you've got tenure. We love your backstory. We just drafted you. None of that matters. All that matters is what you produce on that field. If you can be one of the best 53, we want you. No matter where you came from, who you played for, how many receiving yards you had the year before, the injury you had the year before, it does not matter as long as you can produce now and help this team right away. And Hortiz deserves all the credit. Harbaugh deserves all the credit. And honestly, it feels like they're 1-2 in terms of evaluating how important they are to this franchise, because without the roster that Hortiz bestowed upon Harbaugh, and we know Harbaugh was a part of that process too, they would not be as good as they are right now without Joe Hortiz. So absolutely, Joe Hortiz deserves credit, if not all the credit, and at least, enough credit as Harbaugh's getting right now.
I was thinking about this. It says a lot about he and Hortiz kind of being in lockstep, because the thing about it is that Joe knows the exact types of players that Jim needs, and Jim handles the coaching aspects of things. There's no crossover there. You see a lot of teams with GMs and head coaches that end up clashing because one wants to be more a part of something than the other, and they don't really have these boundaries. No. They know exactly what their rules are, and they're already working them very, very well. And again, guys, this is their first time, their first year working together, and there's already a significant mind meld there.
Yeah, they've already made such a significant jump and not only melded together that this was not a lost year, but this was kind of the feeling out process to the, 2 to 3 to 4 year plan that they were going to rock it up with this organization, and it's already starting to pay dividends. Next question is from Seth. In the spirit of the Chargers team building activities this week, they're going to be staying in Carolina for their game at Pittsburgh. Craig, what is your favorite board game?
All right, it's been a while since I've actually played a board game.
Really? You and the kids don't do a family game night or anything like that?
So it all depends. Like, schedules are all over the place, and they have so much going on as well. They're getting older, so they have different activities. But they're really more into card games like Uno and stuff like that. So not as much the board games.
Right.
So for me, I would have to say it's probably a tie between, and this isn't a cop-out, like everybody loves Monopoly, but it's between Monopoly and does Clue count as a board game?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, between Monopoly and Clue.
There's a board. You got to go to different parts of the room or the house or whatever. Yeah. Okay. I liked Monopoly. I played Monopoly with my wife when we were dating early on, and she ruined Monopoly for me, and I no longer like Monopoly. She's the type of person who gets money and buys property immediately, and that feels like cheating. I know it's within the rules, but like everywhere she goes, she's buying property. So normally, like a sane person, a normal functioning board game player would be like, you know what? I want to get the blues, maybe get some greens too. Maybe get that whole side of the board on that last leg of the board. Maybe get all the railroads, No. What she does is collect 1 or 2 of every property, mess it up for everybody else. It's not fun anymore because I can't get hotels anywhere. And then I'm like, forget it. And then she ends up winning because she's got everything, and I'm waiting to collect 3 of something that I can't get because she's jumping all over it. So I liked Monopoly at one point, no longer do. And it's a point of contention with me and her for a long time. But what I do like playing when I have a bunch of friends over is Settlers of Catan. I don't know if you've ever played that, Craig, but it's a pretty fun game. Having to explain the rules takes a day and a half, but once you find people that know how to play it, I've always enjoyed Settlers of Catan. But Clue's a pretty good one. I haven't loved Monopoly. Candyland's been fun. Chutes and Ladders was a lot of fun, or Snakes and Ladders, depending on if you got young kids. Were fun with the kids, but with the adults, when I got friends over, Settlers of Catan's a cool one to break out. Have you played that?
No, that sounds like the Arabic version of the Oregon Trail.
All right, let's rapid fire a couple of these before we get out of here. Let's see. Jonathan Palmer seemed to barely play today, and Chark is on IR. How many injuries is it going to take for Brendan Rice to see the field this year? I mean, it's going to take one more, is what it's going to take.
Had Palmer been out today,
yeah, he would have absolutely been there. Yep. Yeah. And by the way, Austin brings up a really good point about, we were talking about this passing offense. Austin Shea saying, can't wait for DJ Chark to return. He and Herbert had chemistry in training camp. We need that deep threat badly. That chemistry with DJ Chark joining this receiving core could only help going forward. Everything okay so far, but hoping that'll help when he comes back.
Well, yeah, because he satisfies two things. Number one, the vertical passing game, because he's the most natural as far as being a deep threat is concerned. And also, he acts as a decoy to open up the intermediate portion of the field. So if you have the vertical threat, teams have to respect it. And more often than not, there'll probably be a safety over the top if he burns you for like one or two plays. And then that's when you really start seeing the effectiveness of like Alam McConkey and then Palmer and then the other tight end. So again, I think it's an undervalued, or he's an undervalued component of the offense, but you're seeing the effect it's taking, I think, right now. So hopefully he's okay, and in a couple of weeks he'll be back. That way you can see Herbert start to open it up a little bit more.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to add here, Craig? We should probably get off here soon.
No, I think we pretty much covered it. I will just say that, folks, well, number one, I want to go back to the Monopoly comment.
Okay. Yeah.
Never play Monopoly with a real estate agent. I'll start there, because those experiences tend to go bad as well. You just want to grow on. I had one and it was not fun. It almost ended in a fist fight. And other than that, like I said before, guys, if you don't like this style of football, especially on the offensive side, I'm not trying to kick anybody out of the club, but maybe find something else to go like, because this is what it is. It's going to be this way. As long as Jim Harbaugh is the coach, they're going to pound the rock. They'll be pretty decent balance, but as far as what you want to see from a quarterback like Herbert, like what you've seen in the past in the Chargers, just airing it out, that is not the case. It'll happen, probably be a lot off of play action passes. They'll take those 5 to 7 step drop backs and gun it down the field every now and again. But for the time being, just look for them to keep depositing body shots throughout the game and see if they can break teams' wills.
Justin Tales over here lets us know that the locker room speech is available. So like last week, let's end it on a note. Craig and I obviously have not seen this yet. Let's all watch it together. The 2-0 Chargers with a whole new identity under Jim Harbaugh. Who's got it better than us? Let's have him lead us out. Sorry, can nobody hear that? Oh, you couldn't hear it. Craig.
I just messaged you, dude. I'm sorry. I
wasn't trying to call you out, dude.
I got trying to call you out.
God, man. Hold on a second. This is ridiculous. Hold on a second. Hold on. Come on. All right, hold on. You were gonna. You should have told me like immediately. All right. Hold on. Let's find it again. Now I gotta. Now I gotta get out of this. All right. Let's see if I can do. What did I do last time?
I'll do better next time.
Please do it. Okay. Hold on a second. Let's. Okay. Tell me if you can hear this. Okay. Here we go.
That was a great win. That was a great effort by everybody. Next week, we go to the Bird. All right. So we got time for that. 6 hours from now, I'll be thinking about that. I will not think about that for another 6 hours. What hell of a job! So proud of you. That's how you take care of business. That's how you take care of business, sir. One play at a time. Hell of a job. Let's get a game ball. Deion Henley.
I just want to say I appreciate you boys for keeping me prepared throughout the week. And I couldn't do it anything I did out there without my defensive line, my defensive back. We all stay connected. We all communicated. Yes, sir. So let's keep it going. Yes,
Game ball. Elijah Molden. great job. Great interception. Joe Hortiz game ball. We're fighting. We'll get the blood apart. Chad, get up here. Chad. Get up here. Whoever found this guy. Hey, get up here and get a game ball.
I thank God for bringing me to you guys. This is a special group. I'm just having fun. I don't know about y'all. I'm having fun out there. Yeah, so.
Appreciate y'all boys. Shoot, another week, another great opportunity. Win. Shoot, at this point, not so many people in the league. 2-0. We wanted to win, so put one foot in front of the other. Keep going.
God, man, do we have a good Craig? This is vibes are high right now. Bringing the guy who helped bring Elijah Molden in. Woo! Gosh,
Whoever brought this guy in
deserves the game ball. Oh my gosh, QJ getting the game ball. Dayon, of course, that was crazy. Vibes are so high. I played a muted video for a minute, probably chuckled on mic, and you guys are just watching me watch the video by myself, but vibes are too high.
No, seriously. I thought I was maybe the only one that wasn't hearing it. So I didn't want to be like, hey, I can't hear anything, and everybody just looking at me like a weirdo. So nah, man, all good.
I was so busy watching the video that the whole chat was letting me know and I didn't see it. But it doesn't matter because we did it, and vibes are too high to let that get us down. 2-0. Garrett here, Craig here. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Make sure you follow us over on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube. Go join the Patreon. Have some fun with us. And we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Salute.
I took